Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. Today we are going to start with a new series, that is the World History series, and we want to complete all the topics that is given in UPSC CSC examination syllabus before next mains examination, so that you will be ready for any kind of question that can be asked regarding the world history. And the first topic which we have decided to begin with in this interesting World History series is going to be the French Revolution, and we are going to discuss about the causes, nature, as well as the multidimensional effect of the French Revolution. Now, French Revolution is very interesting and very important event that has unfolded in the past history, and it is due to this reason many historians refer it also as a mother of all revolution, because not only the French Revolution was a revolution in itself, but it also has inspired many other revolutions that later occurred in different part of the century all across the world. So let us try to understand about the French Revolution in more detail. But before understanding about the revolution, we have to understand that what was the situation of France during that time that have given rise to this revolution. So if we talk about the whole state or nation of France before revolution, basically we can say that it was a jigsaw of land. Jigsaw, basically we can say it was fixing together of land from different regions, and which had been haphazardly aggregated over the preceding century. The reason is very simple. In the early time, French was not a republic. French was not a nation state in the modern sense. Rather, it was a monarchy. And under monarchy, there has been a rule of this empire that was continuing for last 400 years. And during this reign of 400 years, the France had basically collected basically annexed land, or basically control land from different regions. And by sewing all of this together, we can say the kingdom of France was generated. It is due to this reason, since a lot of different territories has been included in the France, there was a stark differences in, especially in the laws and the legal institutions all across the France. And these differences are not only observed at the regional level, but these stark differences in laws and institutions were seen even at the level of every town and every village. That means what we can say is that every village and every town of the France during those time has different kind of laws, and it is quite possible that you might have done some criminal activity in one region, in one village, but if you do the same activity in the other village or town, you might not be persecuted at all. Now, coming to after this, we have to understand that where the France was located and where France is located as of now. So this is the kingdom of France in the early 17th to 18th century, and as we can see, the France was having the coastal regions around the Atlantic Ocean, and the other side we have the Mediterranean Sea. On the northern side, it is governed by the Austrian Empire, where we have Austrian Netherlands, and also we have the Holy Roman Empire that was controlling the territory to the northeastern part of France. Then we have some independent kingdoms such as Switzerland and Savoy that made up the eastern border of the France. Now, what was the structure of society before revolution? So as we can see from this particular diagram, the whole structure of or social structure of France can be basically divided into three different pyramidal structures. So first we have the clergy at the top. Obviously, before clergy, the France, as we discussed, was a type of absolute monarchy, and it is ruled by the kings that belong to the Bourbon Empire, and the Louis XVI was the king just preceding the French Revolution. So Louis XVI was the head of the government, head of the state, and after that, the whole society can be structured into three different arenas. So after the king, the next influential member of society were clergy. Clergy were members of the church, and they made up somewhere about 1% of the total population of France. Not only that, they were also a land owning people, and overall, despite having a minimum population or least population of 1%, overall they used to control about 10% of the French territory. Not only they have control over the land of the France, but they also used to receive 10% of teeth. Teeth is a kind of tax that every farmer, because France was largely an agrarian economy, there are a lot of agricultural laborers, agricultural farmers were there, and these farmers have to every year pay 10% of the total tax, whatever they are able to produce in their lands. And apart from this, the clergy also had a benefit that they did not have to pay any taxes. That means they were tax exempt. So these were the major influential section of the French society, just 1% in terms of population, but has a huge command over the land and tax resources of the France. On the second pedestal, we have the nobles. Nobles basically were those members of society who were born in noble families. They could also come from the members of the church. They can be members of the extended royal family, as well as some of the nobles also became noble after purchasing of high offices in the Kingdom of France. Overall, the population of nobles was somewhere about 2%, and the amount of control which they have, or amount or the exercise which they have over the land of France was again 25%. Apart from that, they were also a very powerful section because they used to hold all the government offices as well as the higher rank position of the French army. And again, similarly like clergy, the nobles were also not taxed. They were tax exempt, and even they received feudal dues and feudal duties and taxes from different part of French society. So these two people, the clergy, or these two sections basically we can say, clergy and nobles, as you can see, make up 3% of French population. However, if you talk about in terms of control over land, it was almost 45% of control, and also they have huge control over the tax revenues that were being generated by the farmers. Now, at the bottommost level, we have the third state or third section of the French society that make up 97% of total population. They were the one who has to bear the brunt of all the taxes which they have to pay to the kingdom, the royal family, as well as the nobles and the clergy. Apart from that, they do not have any representation or any voice in the government and the policy making of the government. And these sections were made up of three different categories of people. The one we can call as bourgeois. Bourgeois basically refer to a middle class, and there has been large scale increase in the number of middle class in the French society, and that is we will discuss later is one of the reasons how the revolution has been triggered. Apart from that, these were also largely made up of artisans and the peasants. Peasants were the highest number of peasants, we can say, used to consist of the highest number of people in the French society. So overall, that we can understand that the French society after the king and his family can be divided into three different estates. The first stage is clergy, the second stage are nobles, and the third and the bottommost pedestal, stage is something that is called as the third state. So this is the structure of society in pre-revolutionary time. So what about the economy? How the French economy used to look like before the revolution? So as discussed just now, overall France still was a feudal nation with a rural agrarian setup. Feudal nation means the farmers who were working in the field, they do not have any ownership over this land. These lands were owned by rich classes, noble classes called as manors, and these manors basically give these farmers who used to work full time in their field as wages or some amount of agricultural produce as against their working or as against their labor. However, as far as the farming is concerned, despite French being an agrarian or majorly agrarian economy, the nature of farming was very, very unproductive in nature. The methods the farmers used to employ in farming was very obsolete. The farming was done at a small scale level, and mostly it was wasteful in nature. There were several steps or several, we can say, effort were made to bring some kind of new technology, learning some new methods by looking at the neighboring United Kingdom. However, all these methods basically failed in the France, and that is why the agriculture, despite being the backbone of French economy, was not yielding as much result or as much produce as should have done, or as compared to other nearby countries. And it is in this context we have to understand that the French Revolution have begun, or French Revolution, the seed of French Revolution was sown. So, what are the causes of the French Revolution? Now, we can divide the causes of French Revolution into various dimensions. So, first, if you try to understand that how the political system of France have influenced the French Revolution. So, as just discussed, the France at that time was absolute monarchy, ruled for almost 400 years by the kings of Bourbon dynasty. And that time, just before revolution, it was Louis XVI who was the king of the empire of the France. The absolute monarchy, however, was under the control of weak monarch. As compared to his predecessor, Louis XVI was a weak king, and basically he was also not that attentive toward the affairs of the state, and he used to prefer personal interest over any kind of court interest. Not only that, he also used to live a very extravagant and lavish life, and spend a lot of money which would have spent in otherwise suitable works. Apart from that, the king Louis XVI was very much unpopular. The other reason is because he was married to his queen Marie Antoinette. Marie Antoinette belonged to Austrian Empire, and also her behavior was not accepted by the larger French population in general. And it is due to this reason that Louis XVI was not only a weak king, but also he became very, very unpopular among the masses. The second reason behind the revolution can be said to the social organization or the social system of France that was prevailing during this time. As we discussed, the France was overall divided into three different states, and in these three different states we have discussed there was a very huge, we can say, the extent of social inequality. As we said that the upper 3% of the French population used to control more than 40-45% of the wealth, lands, as well as control over the taxes, while the lower 97% has to bear all this burden, and also they did not have any representation, they did not have any say in the government affairs. So it is due to this weak monarch, or we can say that this dissatisfaction with the political system of the France, the social inequality prevailing in the social hierarchy of the France, coupled with a food crisis that just occurred in 1788 and 1789. Now, we can understand that, as we have discussed, the France was an agrarian economy. Despite that, its yield or agricultural yield or crop yield was not very high. The extent of farming was very, we can say, small scale in nature, and it is due to this reason that we have a very poor harvest that the farmers were witnessing from last couple of years. Not only that, this poor harvest and the problem of poor harvest is coupled with the significant growth in the French population from just 23 millions to 28 millions in last 5 to 8 years. It is under this context we have to understand that France also were facing the burden of this bad weather, and due to this inclement weather there was a very bad harvest because most of the crops that farmers were sowing or growing basically failed near 1788. Due to the failure of these crops, obviously it led to a significant rise in the prices of the food commodities, and during that time bread used to be the staple commodity or staple food of the French population, and there has been a significant rise in the price of bread. Not only that, as the agriculture failed, the crops failed, there was less demand for the laborers, that has also led to fall in the wages. So we can understand it is a kind of trifecta of tragedies. We have falling wages, we have rising prices, and we have poor harvest. Combined all these three together, and what we can say in the France happened is something that we can refer as subsistence crisis. Subsistence crisis is the crisis where people or general populace of the France do not even have sufficient resources to feed themselves or to feed their families or get a square meal for their families. It is in this context we can understand that how bad situation was, that when John Adams, one of the founding fathers of the United States of America, when he visited France during this time, he had made a very stellar observation. And what he has said that as far as the country is concerned, it is nothing but a heap of ashes. If we talk about the grass on which mostly the animals depend upon, on which the cattle depend upon, it was scarcely to be seen, and all sorts of grain, short, thin, pale, and feeble, while the flax is quite dead. This is a direct result of the bad and inclement weather. And thus he observed that I pity these people from my soul. No green peas, no salad, no vegetables to be had upon the road, and the sky is still as clear, dry, and cold as ever. That means there is no chances, there is no probability of rainfall that could have and basically would have been helpful in increasing the crop production of the France at that time. The flocks of sheep and herds of cattle stalk about the fields like droves of walking skeletons. See, if sometimes if crop failure happens, but if you have cattle, cattle can supplement the earning income of the farmers, and not only they supplement the income, but they can also provide an alternative food in one of the traditional food staples such as rice, wheat, and all these kind of things. So because of rainfall, the grasses are also not growing, and that is why the cattle were also something that could not have been depended upon by the farmers and the people of France. So it is in this context what happens is that we have to understand that one other phenomena that was happening along with the rise in population of France is that there was a rise in not only the overall population of France, but there was also rise in the middle class section of the French society. Now these rising middle classes, who are also called as bourgeois class, they were basically educated and wealthy people who used to have different kind of jobs, different kind of employment, such as we have engineers, doctors, we also have we can say lawyers. So these people were very much influenced by the ideas that came due to the this event or phenomena of enlightenment that was penetrating all across the European society. And due to this ideas of enlightenment, they start to believe that the absolute monarchy and the ruling of the monarch, the king, is now no longer tenable in the modern day France, and the system of government has to be changed, it has to be replaced. And the major ideas that penetrated the French society was the ideas of equality and freedom, which was non-existent in France during that time. The ideas of equality and freedom is something that these people, the rising middle classes and bourgeois, were quite vying. So what we can understand that we have a unequal social structure, we have a weak political system or dissatisfaction of people with the existing political system, we have a food and we can say subsistence crisis, and we also have people who are willing and who are basically looking out for any opportunities so that they can change the system of government, so they can basically ensure equality and freedom to people in the French society. So it is due to this reason, these all we can say is the background that has caused the French Revolution to become a kind of natural event. After this, what happens? We have an imminent cause. These all causes we have discussed, so the causes that are being built up for past few years. But now we have an imminent cause. An imminent cause is something that is related to the economy of the France, that is related something to the finances of France. So what basically has happened is that France was very much involved in the American War of Independence, or also you can say American Revolution. And due to this, they have spent a huge amount of money in Americas. And it is believed that at that point in time, in year 1789, total a billion livres, that was the French currency at that time, that was the loan on the French government, which was the state's entire income for a year. Not only that, there was also a heavy debt, and as we know that how debt can cause destruction of the society, destruction of the economy, as we see in the modern times as well. And it is due to this heavy debt, there was no other option for the king but to look out for increase in taxes so that revenues can be generated. It is in this context, or it is in this background, that king then decided finally that we have to hold a meeting or call a meeting of different states, all the three states and representative of these states finally, and there they can propose about the rising taxes. So what we can understand that it is this decision of Louis XVI to call a meeting of State General to propose increase in the taxes is going to be a disastrous decision, and it is going to become a immediate reason for the beginning of a French Revolution. So let us try to understand. Before trying to understand about what basically happened in French Revolution, how can we sum up what the French Revolution was all about? So many historians believe, now again we have a lot of conflict. Some historians say that French Revolution ended in year 1799. Some historians believe that it ended in 1804 when Napoleon came to power. While some historians even say that we can say the end of French Revolution only happened in year 1815 when the Napoleon Bonaparte was defeated and exiled to Saint Helena. However, what we can say that between year 1789 to 1802, France was wrecked by a revolution which radically has changed the government, administration, military, as well as culture of the nation. And not only it changed and transformed the France or the society of France, but it also plunged Europe into a series of wars that is also called as Revolutionary War. Not only due to the effect of this French Revolution, centuries of law, tradition, and practices were wiped away, but also the revolution have been able to predict, no one has been able to basically predict that revolution can go to so far. However, at the end of the revolution, warfare spread the ideas of revolution all across the Europe, and thus changes the continent permanently. So that is why we can understand that French Revolution was the most significant event that has unfolded in the history of the late 18th century. Now, what basically has happened in the revolution, how the revolution has proceeded, and what has been its outcome on not only France but also all across the world, we'll discuss in the next part of this video. So that is all for this particular series. Stay tuned for the next part of video. Thank you very much.